After transmigrating, just 1 day of farming equals 10 years of cultivation for others. Yet, you were born into a royal family that never has to work. Every time you try to farm, your emperor father scolds you. As a prince of the Great Joe and a cultivation prodigy, you're telling me you want to be a farmer? This lack of ambition truly comes from your maidservant mother. What a waste that the supreme bone grew in your body. Saying so, the emperor gave you a cold glare and turned away. You thought this was just his usual complaining. But that night, someone infiltrated your bedchamber. With lightning speed, they gouged out your supreme bone and crippled all your cultivation. The next day, without even seeing the emperor, an edict banished you to Yujo via carriage. The world claims the life of this genius prince has ended, but only you know that your invincible life has just begun. As the carriage stopped before the Yujo city lord's manor, the only eunuch traveling with you rushed to open the door. Before his hand could touch the iron ring, he was stopped by the armored city lord. Your Highness, your residence has been prepared. I've long heard of your fondness for gardening. I've specially prepared a thatched hut and 2 acres of farmland for you, located 10 miles west of the city. Without waiting for your reply, the city lord smiled and rode away. Seeing this, even the little eunuch beside you couldn't bear it. This is outrageous. In the past, such a vulgar man wouldn't be fit to even look at your highness in his lifetime. Now he dares to act so arrogant. He clearly has no respect for you at all, your highness. You smiled faintly and waved your hand. Xiaoye, the world is just this realistic. I've implicated you, getting you kicked out of the imperial capital to come here with me. Hearing this, Xiaoli quickly shook his head. Your highness, please don't say that. It is my blessing to follow your highness. He didn't respond to that, but instead walked toward the thatched hut with excitement. As soon as you arrived, you couldn't wait to go inside and grab a dusty hoe. Then, ignoring Zhao Li's persuasion, you insisted on going to loosen the soil in the field. The moment the hoe struck the earth, a wave of energy surged straight up through your body. Martial arts in this world are divided into 9 grades. The 9th grade is entry level, and the 1st grade is the strongest. Above the 1st grade are Grandmasters and Great Grandmasters. Above Great Grandmasters is the legendary Conate realm of cultivators. Soon, you broke through to the 9th grade from a crippled mortal. Meanwhile, your physique evolved into the rare primal chaos divine body. To avoid drawing attention, for the past half year, you did nothing but sleep and farm. Along with changes in the border war, various factions in the royal court engaged in fierce scheming and infighting. Only you, living in this small courtyard, enjoyed a rare, peaceful life. Although your material conditions were a bit poor, your special ability was developed to its absolute peak. Digging the soil had a chance to drop various panaceas and elixirs. Every planted seed could yield various magical artifacts. Now, the harvest season has arrived. As you harvested all the crops and piled them up in the courtyard, majestic spiritual energy caused earth-shattering changes to your body. You instantly broke through to the Grandmaster realm, which ordinary martial artists couldn't reach in a century. Coupled with the profound foundation you've accumulated over the past 6 months, defeating a great Grandmaster in battle would be a breeze. Over the past half year, besides cultivating, you spent time reading ancient texts to familiarize yourself with this world. However, in this world, the Great Zhou dynasty is but a drop in the ocean. Not to mention anything else, there are 7 other kingdoms just like the Great Zhou. There are also many transcendent sects completely free from dynasty control. A great Grandmaster can do whatever they want in the Great Zhou, but outside of it, they wouldn't dare speak against those cultivators. Therefore, hiding in this forgotten place to keep farming remains your most logical plan for now. Meanwhile, in the City Lord's manor, a reporting scout caused City Lord Beilong's face to change drastically. My lord, bad news. A peak Grandmaster sent by the Demon Kingdom has infiltrated the city. Our men just crossed paths with him, and hundreds of soldiers were instantly slashed down. Hearing this, Beilong felt incredibly anxious. He was only a mere 2nd-grade martial artist. If the enemy came to behead him, the City Lord, even thousands of troops in the city, couldn't stop it. It seemed the Demon Kingdom was dead set on starting a national war with Great Zhou. Thinking of this, Beilong didn't dare to hesitate. He immediately ordered his men to go to the capital for reinforcements. Meanwhile, he notified the civilians to evacuate the city and ordered the garrison troops to prepare for a fight to the death. Beilong wasn't worried about a direct confrontation. After all, even if these hundreds of thousands of troops were useless, letting the enemy kill endlessly, killing thousands a day would still take months. What he feared was the man lying low in Yujo, causing sabotage from time to time, making everyone live in constant fear. Over time, military morale would collapse, and Yujo would fall without a siege. So his task now was to find this person's whereabouts at all costs. However, after a few days of stalemate, things gradually developed in the worst direction. That Demon Kingdom expert appeared very briefly each time, directly unleashing lethal moves that caused massive casualties. Even if his attack missed, he would immediately flee to recover his spiritual energy. With the mortal bodies of his soldiers, pursuit was impossible. They could only watch him wear them down again and again. In just a few days, many deserters appeared in the city. Just as Beilong was sitting on pins and needles, a soldier handed over a letter with extreme excitement. News from the capital. Eunuch Cao, who serves His Majesty, is coming. He will arrive tonight. Knowing the elder was already a half-step great Grandmaster, that damned Demon Kingdom Grandmaster was surely doomed. Cao Zihai's arrival greatly boosted Beilong's confidence. Have our men form groups of 100, and go search for that Grandmaster's hideout right now. He consumed a lot of spiritual energy last night. He must be hiding somewhere to recover. Once discovered, do not engage alone. Send out the signal immediately for the army to surround and kill him. Meanwhile, near a thatched hut in the south of the city, that expert from the Demon Kingdom was currently hiding there. Fighting against hundreds of thousands of soldiers was too much even for a Grandmaster. A hint of exhaustion showed in his eyes. Good thing I brought some pills with me. I'll kill Beilong tomorrow and complete the mission. Thinking of this, he closed his eyes, concentrated, and began restoring his spiritual energy. However, the very next second, a voice rang in his ear. "Who are you?" Hearing this, Li Bing instantly broke into a cold sweat. His spiritual energy even flowed into the wrong meridians. He never expected that, as a Grandmaster, he wouldn't notice someone approaching. It wasn't until he saw you walk out of the thatched hut, wearing coarse clothes and living in such a rundown place, that he finally relaxed his guard. Li Bing casually waved his hand to obliterate you, but to his absolute shock, you, a mere farmer, blocked his attack without even moving. This aura also caught the attention of the patrolling soldiers in the city. "It's His Highness's south courtyard. Hurry, go report to the city lord." Meanwhile, you slowly raised your hand, holding a fallen dead leaf from the courtyard. The next second, this leaf shot forward with terrifying power. Li Bing was stunned at first. Then, he felt an intense pain radiating from his chest. Looking down, he saw his dantian was actually pierced by a dead leaf. A generation's Grandmaster fell just like that. Even until his last second of life, he didn't know how he died. Soon, City Lord Beilong led his soldiers into the courtyard. Seeing the corpse lying on the ground, he instantly felt a chill run down his spine. To think that this Demon Kingdom expert, who had terrified an army of hundreds of thousands, was actually dead. And the murder weapon was unexpectedly an ordinary dead leaf. Since when did Yujo City harbor such a terrifying existence? Filled with doubt, Shanglong looked around, trying to find clues, until he saw you working in the fields. He walked over slowly and asked, "Did you notice anything unusual here just now?" You shook your head and asked him what happened. Seeing that you knew nothing, he didn't bother to answer. He would never associate a useless prince with a Grandmaster expert. After Shenglong left, little Li in the house couldn't hold it in anymore. "Your Highness, no wonder when I told you to flee with the commoners a few days ago, you didn't care at all. When exactly did you cultivate such strength?" Thinking back over the past half year, you were either busy with farm work or resting in the house. You never went out, let alone encountered any fortunate opportunities. You just smiled. Then, with a wave of your hand, you tossed a pill into little Li's mouth. Instantly, little Li felt all the meridians in his body open up, forcefully elevating him from an ordinary mortal to a martial artist. This little Li had followed you here for half a year, serving you respectfully every day. He never complained about your low status, making him worthy of being your most trusted confidant. Right after, you took out a cultivation manual. It was the sunflower manual, which you had also dug up from the fields. Only a eunuch could practice it. Since it was useless to you, you rewarded it to little Li and warned him never to let anyone else know about this. Meanwhile, at the gates of Yujo City, Shenglong and his elites stood in neat formation to welcome Eunuch Cao. Soon, an effeminate man stepped down from the carriage. Shenglong greets Eunuch Cao. Eunuch Cao smiled faintly. The group then headed toward the city lord's manor. After learning the details of what had happened, Eunuch Cao was utterly shocked. To kill a Grandmaster expert with a dead leaf, it must be the work of a great Grandmaster. Since the threat to Yujo has been eliminated, there's no need for me to stay here any longer. However, having traveled thousands of miles, I must still fulfill His Majesty's decree and check on that prince. As soon as he finished speaking, Shenglong's heart skipped a beat. Half a year ago, your supreme bone was stolen, and you were exiled from the capital to Yujo. By now, you had long faded from public attention, but now Eunuch Cao from the capital suddenly brought you up. Could it be that His Majesty has changed his mind? If this prince returns to favor and decides to cause trouble for a border city lord like him, he would be doomed. He could only pray that Eunuch Cao had other motives for this visit. Under the veil of night, Eunuch Cao and a few attendants quietly arrived at your small courtyard. Having lived in the palace since childhood, you naturally recognized the emperor's favorite. But in the past, he always acted subserviently. Yet now, his eyes were full of arrogance. Your Highness truly has a talent for being a farmer. Hearing these sarcastic words, you didn't get angry. Seeing someone from the capital, your first thought was to extract some updates about the capital from him. From Eunuch Cao's words, it seems everyone is quite satisfied with my life as a commoner. Cao the High didn't respond directly, but instead turned to look at little Li. Even the little slave following your Highness has stepped onto the martial path. I didn't expect your Highness to still be so leisurely. Allow me to advise your Highness. As a prince, clinging to life so pathetically, how will the people of the world view this? When you received the decree to come to this border, did you really think His Majesty wanted you to be a commoner? For someone of royal blood to become a cripple is a disgrace to the royal family. Being banished to Yujo was His Majesty's merciful grace. If you had taken your own life, outsiders would have praised the royal family's unyielding spirit. But by living on like this, you only become a laughingstock. Yujo is a land of constant war. If the city falls one day, your identity as a prince will become a weapon in the hands of others. Yet, half a year has passed, and your Highness still hasn't grasped this underlying meaning. Since that's the case, I have no choice but to do it myself. After hearing this, you calmly took a sip of tea. Rambling on with so many explanations, it seems making a move on me is your own initiative, Eunuch Cao. This isn't the Emperor's will, is it? As soon as you spoke, murderous intent flashed in Eunuch Cao's eyes. I have followed His Majesty for many years, and I know His Majesty's mind best. In other words, my will is His Majesty's will. Die. Eunuch Cao formed his fingers into a claw and lunged straight for your head. However, the next second, everything in the small house froze, as if time had stopped. Under everyone's incredulous gaze, you slowly stood up. In an instant, myriad rays of golden light burst from your fingertips, firmly locking Eunuch Cao's entire arm in place. Accompanied by the cracking of bones, his arm instantly turned into a mist of blood. Eunuch Cao let out a wretched howl and fell heavily to the ground. You looked down at him from above. Eunuch Cao's eyes were filled with mixed emotions: terror, fear, and sheer disbelief. How could you possess such terrifying strength? You smiled and said, As you are now, I can kill you with a flick of my finger, but I want to see you beg. Uruksao immediately fell to his knees and begged for mercy. Your Highness, please spare this old slave's life. I am willing to follow your every command. Once your Highness returns, I will do everything in my power to help you inherit the throne. With just a few words, he fully displayed his true subservient nature. You couldn't help but mock. Do you think I care about the throne of the Great Zhou? Uruksao desperately kowtowed, banging his head on the floor. Your Highness, have mercy. No matter what, this old slave is His Majesty's confidant. If I die by your Highness's hand, how will you explain it? However, before he could finish begging, you slammed your palm onto his head. You damned eunuch. I told you to beg for mercy, yet you dare to threaten me instead? Then, with a gentle wave of your hand, the corpse silently flew and landed not far from the courtyard. A day later, the imperial capital was shaken. Cao Dahai, the great Zhou emperor's sharpest hound, had died tragically in Yujo City. Everyone unanimously believed he was definitely killed by the Demon Kingdom expert. No one would ever suspect a crippled prince like you. Thus, a great war between the two nations was on the verge of breaking out. Meanwhile, over this past year, you were completely unaffected. By farming, you had acquired numerous divine abilities and treasures, and your cultivation had long broken through to the Khanate realm. Aside from those reclusive immortal cultivation sects, this realm was considered absolutely invincible in the mortal world. If not for the sake of building a solid foundation, you would have probably entered the next realm by now. Under your generous provision of resources, Little Li had fully stepped into the rank of a first-grade martial artist. In truth, Yujo had long been under your control. Little Li had secretly won over many military generals. Now, half of Shenglong's forces had been covertly taken over by Little Li. You didn't care about the army. What you cared about was the control over all of Yujo. Rest assured, Your Highness, everything is progressing smoothly. With just a single command from Your Highness, an army of hundreds of thousands will instantly switch sides. Little Li smiled with anticipation. However, I recently heard that His Majesty has sent the 5th prince here. Hearing this, a dark glint flashed in your eyes. This 5th prince's mother came from a noble background, and his maternal grandfather was the Grand Elder of the Black and White Palace. Therefore, very few dared to provoke him. Among the princes, only you, who possessed the Supreme Bone, could rival him. Because of this, you suspected he was the mastermind behind the extraction of your Supreme Bone. Meanwhile, inside the heavenly hall of the Imperial Palace, a dignified middle-aged man sat upright on the dragon throne. Chung-er. Yujo is currently plagued by war, and the Demon Kingdom's army is pressing on the borders. If you don't have a foolproof plan, just withdraw and return. As long as Black Tiger Pass does not fall, they will not trample a single inch of the Great Zhou's land. Hearing this, the young man beside him cupped his fists. Rest assured, Royal Father, your son will act with utmost caution. But if a massive war breaks out, what about 7th brother? After hearing this, a cold glint flashed in the Great Zhou Emperor's eyes. The Great Zhou royal family does not have captives. You know what to do. Your son understands. Please don't worry, Royal Father. Yujo City will not fall. Then, he said with pride, my grandfather has already sent word. Once a fierce battle breaks out, experts from the Black and White Palace will step in to help. The 5th prince's words put the Emperor of Great Zhou in an excellent mood. With the Black and White Palace intervening, Yuzo City will naturally be impenetrable. After this battle, upon your return, it will be time to crown you as king. Hearing this, the 5th prince was thrilled beyond measure. But little did he know, after he walked out of the hall, the look of approval in the eyes of the lofty emperor had long vanished, replaced entirely by a sinister gleam. Staring at the 5th prince's retreating back, he burst into malicious laughter. Half a month later, Little Li stood respectfully before you. Your Highness the 5th prince has arrived. He brought 100,000 black armor soldiers. Their presence is truly imposing. The Black Armor Army is the elite of the Great Zhou military. Their combat power equals 500,000 troops of Yujo City. You couldn't help but chuckle. He really is the favorite. Any other news? Little Li continued. Right now, the Demon Kingdom's army outside Yujo City numbers over 500,000. Furthermore, they have dozens of Grandmasters, and even 2 Great Grandmasters. Such combat power has almost no equal across the 8 kingdoms. There is absolutely no way to defend this mere city of Yujo. Even with the 5th prince here, it still cannot be held. However, acting completely out of character, you said, it must be defended. Even if it can't be held, we must hold it. Because you were finally about to harvest your crops again, how could you let the city fall? Little Li smiled bitterly. Your Highness, it's not up to us to decide. In his eyes, your strength was at most that of a great Grandmaster. No matter how strong you were, it would be useless against the 2 terrifying powerhouses of the Demon Kingdom. You waved your hand and said no more, pondering the factions involved behind this situation. Yuzo City had now become the focal point of all 8 kingdoms. Once the 2 sides clashed, it would absolutely be an earth-shattering event. If the Demon Kingdom and the Great Zhou dynasty truly went to war, many sect factions would likely be dragged into the fray. Meanwhile, the 5th prince's personal arrival in Yuju had caused the soldiers' morale to skyrocket, a stark contrast to you, the 7th prince who had been in Yuju for over 4 years. In the city lord's manor, the 5th prince sat in the seat of honor. In the side seat, General Long was the first to offer flattery. The last time I saw your highness was a few years ago. Even then, your highness already possessed an extraordinary aura. Now, after several years, you have gained even more of a king's bearing. You flatter me, General. I have come this time under my imperial father's orders to defend Yujo City. I ask for your cooperation, General, in resisting the demon army. When the time comes, I will truthfully report your merits to my father. His words greatly delighted General Long. By the way, how has my 7th brother been these past few years? The 7th prince lives like an ordinary commoner. He barely ever leaves his residence. Hearing this, the 5th prince slammed the table and shouted angrily, What did father send him here for? Has he completely forgotten? Tomorrow, I will go ask him personally. Could it be that after his cultivation was crippled, his spirit was crippled as well? If that is the case, why doesn't he just go and die? General Long's mouth twitched slightly, but he said nothing. A succession war between princes is a great taboo for subjects to discuss in any dynasty. On the other side, the Demon Kingdom felt the pressure multiply upon learning of the fifth prince's arrival. They knew very well that this prince's maternal family was the Black and White Palace. That notoriously fierce great elder was highly unreasonable when defending his own. The armies of both sides were temporarily locked in a standoff, making no further moves. You minded your own business, sitting in your courtyard basking in the sun. It was incredibly relaxing. Just then, the door was suddenly kicked open violently. Immediately after, 2 rows of soldiers rushed into the courtyard. A tall and straight figure slowly walked in from outside. This person was the fifth prince, Su Cheng. You were somewhat shocked the moment you laid eyes on him. You previously thought your supreme bone had been transplanted into Su Cheng. Now it seemed he didn't possess the slightest aura of the supreme bone at all. You completely lost interest in anything else about him. Such trash was truly beneath your notice. Seeing you lying on the rocking chair with no intention of getting up, Su Cheng immediately became furious. Seventh brother, do you have no understanding of respect and hierarchy? What respect do you expect? We weren't even born from the same mother. Why pretend to be loving brothers? Hearing this, Su Cheng's expression changed drastically. As a prince, you only know how to eat, drink, and seek pleasure. Doesn't your conscience feel any shame? You looked at him with a mocking expression, waiting to see what he would say next. This made Su Cheng stomp his feet in a fit of rage. Father has already given his word. When that day truly comes, I will personally send you on your way. With that, he flicked his sleeves and turned to leave. This remark made you chuckle. Just as I expected. That old bastard sitting on the dragon throne is still as ruthless and heartless as ever. But this was for the best. At the very least, you wouldn't have any psychological burden regarding your future actions. Soon, the Great War broke out. After 3 months of building up strength, the very first battle was earth-shattering. Grandmasters and great-grandmasters joined the fray, one after another. In just 1 day's time, the land outside Yujo City was dyed red with blood. Mountains of corpses made the scene exceptionally desolate. Clad in golden armor, Su Cheng wiped the blood from the corner of his eye, looking ferocious. Your Highness, the enemy is coming in full force. We cannot stop them with our current strength. The gap in top-tier combat power left Yujo in imminent peril. No matter what, we must hold the line. I will write to my father and grandfather immediately, asking them to send more experts over. Yujo City absolutely must not be breached in such a short time. He was still counting on the Battle of Yujo to earn him the title of king. If he couldn't even hold out for a few days, his prestige in the imperial court would completely collapse. Having not taken off his armor for 2 days, Su Cheng held a letter in his hands trembling faintly. The emperor's message was simple. Experts would be dispatched immediately, but it would take time to mobilize them. During this period, he must ensure Yujo City remained safe and sound. No matter how foolish Su Cheng was, he could see the political maneuvering behind this. In his anger, he slammed his palm down, smashing his chair to pieces. His grandfather had also sent him a message. Because too many factions were involved behind the scenes, the Black and White Palace could not send anyone. At this moment, Su Cheng felt only a deep sense of despair. There was absolutely no hope of winning this battle. However, before leaving, there was one more thing he needed to do. A cold light glinted in his eyes. On the other side, you had been paying attention to the battle here. You didn't expect it to end in just a few days. Just as you were about to make a move, you suddenly realized that your previous batch of crops was ready to be harvested. I might as well harvest them first. Above the Jiantian realm is the Martial King realm. In the territories of these 8 kingdoms, they are legendary gods. If one stepped into the kingdoms, all living beings would have to bow and worship. You didn't hesitate at all. With a tap of your finger, an array shrouded the sky. But what you absolutely did not expect was that this breakthrough had no limits. You directly bypassed the Martial King realm and entered the Martial Venerable realm. Moreover, you were only a single step away from breaking through to the legendary Martial Saint realm. Feeling the terrifying power surging through your body, you were so shocked your mouth fell open. But at that moment, the courtyard gate was suddenly smashed to pieces by brute force. A second later, over a dozen figures rushed in. The leader was none other than the 5th prince, Su Cheng. Beside him were shockingly several grandmasters and first-rank experts. Yujo cannot be held. Before I leave, I must kill you. The great Zhou royal family does not allow anyone to be taken prisoner. Su Cheng feigned a look of sorrow on his face. Little Li quickly stood in front of you. Run, your highness. Leave them to me. What a fiercely loyal servant. This bond of yours moves me to tears. Su Cheng waved his hand, and the grandmasters attacked in unison. With such a lineup, Su Cheng believed he was giving you plenty of face. You want to kill me just to vent your anger. Bringing these experts is nothing but a show of force. But little do you know, you are the real clown. You slowly extended a single finger and tapped the empty air. In an instant, the several grandmasters who stood at the pinnacle of power simply exploded into a mist of blood. They were gone. Erasing grandmasters with a single finger? What the hell is going on? Su Cheng was scared witless at this moment. You haven't been crippled. You are actually a Grandmaster. No. A Grandmaster doesn't possess such means. You are in the innate realm. Su Cheng stammered, at a loss for words for a moment. But you shook your head. Actually, I'm not in the innate realm. I am a martial sovereign. At this moment, a thunderous roar echoed in everyone's minds. They had only heard of this majestic title in ancient texts. Yet now, you actually claim to be a martial sovereign. All right, it's time to send you on your way. The moment you raised your hand, a sky full of golden light slowly descended from midair. The instant the golden light touched them, not even a single drop of blood was shed. They were obliterated by the light. Everything dissipated and vanished into nothingness. Little Lee was dumbfounded. Watching your miraculous methods left him without even the courage to imagine it. Suppressing and killing a whole crowd with a flip of your hand, this is His Highness's true strength. Meanwhile, a massive battle had broken out outside the city. Hundreds of thousands of Demon Kingdom troops were filled with madness. You shook your head slightly, a thoughtful look in your eyes. If you didn't take action soon, Yujo City would be lost. If it were before the Yujo crops had been harvested, you would have already intervened. But now, whether the city falls or not, seems to have no impact on you. While you were contemplating, a look of despair also appeared in General Shenglong's eyes on the city wall. He glanced back towards the imperial capital and suddenly burst into maniacal laughter. Your Majesty, are we not subjects of the Great Zhou? General, let's flee. Two vice-generals beside Shenglong spoke in panic. Hearing this, a flash of fury crossed Shenglong's eyes. He stood up from the ground, trembling. Warriors march into battle honoring death on the battlefield. Behind us are countless folks of our hometown, our parents and families. Today we fight neither for His Majesty nor for Great Zhou. We fight for our own glory, for our hometown folks, sons of Yujo. Kill them all. On the brink of life and death, his mind became completely clear, allowing him to break through the bottleneck he had been stuck at for over 10 years. He surprisingly leaped into the master realm, but even with this breakthrough, he couldn't turn the tide. Amidst the crowd, Shenglong's body was sent flying 100 meters away. He was entirely drained of strength now. Let alone a master, even a first-grade warrior could probably kill him. Shenglong closed his eyes, waiting for death to descend. However, right at this moment, a voice suddenly echoed, "You guys are too noisy." This voice made everyone present tremble in their hearts. The combined nearly 1 million troops of both sides instantly ceased fighting at this single command. No one dared to make the slightest move, because a massive invisible pressure was pressing them down so hard they almost collapsed to the ground. May I ask which exalted expert is present? Please show yourself. In midair, the Demon Kingdom's Grandmaster respectfully cupped his fists with a solemn face. Soon after, you stepped out from Yujo City, walking on thin air. When he clearly saw who it was, Shenglong, who had just crawled up, was dumbfounded. How could it be the 7th Prince? Isn't he a cripple? How could he possess such unbelievable abilities? But the next second, his mind went completely blank. We pay our respects to the 7th Prince. Over 100,000 troops in the crowd surprisingly roared in unison. Then they respectfully knelt and bowed toward the ethereal figure in the void. These people were all those whom Little Lee had subdued over the years. Now, they are loyal only to you, caring nothing for the Great Zhou dynasty or His Majesty. Shenglong felt his scalp tingle. What exactly is he planning to do? So it's the 7th Prince of the Great Zhou dynasty. I wondered who it was. How dare you play such cheap tricks in front of me? You're courting death. The Demon Kingdom's Grandmaster, who was respectfully bowing just moments ago, suddenly launched an attack at you. But his terrifying attack couldn't even flutter the corner of your clothes. You smiled disdainfully. The opponent was far too weak in your eyes. Facing the hundreds of thousands of troops, you didn't even have the interest to lift a finger. The instant you raised your palm, the entire world seemed to freeze at this moment. The world was left with only one color: gold. The soldiers of Yujo quickly covered their eyes, blinded by the myriad of golden rays. But when they opened them again, what they saw was a scene they couldn't have imagined in their lifetimes. The entire army of the Demon Kingdom, along with their masters and grandmasters, were all lying on the ground now, entirely devoid of life. More importantly, not a single Yujo soldier was accidentally harmed, yet not a single person from the Demon Kingdom survived. Such methods were beyond comprehension. The entire Yujo army and Shenglong were incomparably shocked at this moment. Countless soldiers looked incredulously at the immortal-like figure in the void. It was hard to imagine that this immortal was actually their 7th Highness, the very cripple whose supreme bone had been gouged out. Long live your Highness. Accompanied by fanatical roars, many people also snapped back to reality. Your gaze slowly fell upon Shenglong, terrifying him so much that he hastily fell to his knees. The next second, your figure swept away and disappeared, annihilating the entire Demon Kingdom in a single battle. Yet such monumental news did not reach the imperial capital. The entire army and Shenglong unanimously suppressed the information. On the 3rd day after the battle ended, Shenglong and the 2 vice-generals who had long since submitted to you arrived together outside your courtyard. The 3 of them gathered their courage and walked inside. After all, your godlike methods were still vivid in their minds. It might even stay with them for a lifetime. In the courtyard, Little Lee was watering the flowers. Seeing Shenglong, he walked over with a smile. "What brings the city lord here? How may I help you?" Shenglong hastily cupped his fists and respectfully replied, "I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. The 3 of us came here to ask His Highness to make a decision on an important matter. Could Eunuch Lee please announce us?" With your permission, the 3 men came straight into the room and knelt down. "Your Highness, regarding the great victory in Yujo, we are unsure how to write the victory report. Please instruct us, Your Highness. Tell it as it is." After speaking these words, you said no more. After the 3 of them left, Little Lee asked somewhat excitedly, "Your Highness, are we preparing to return to the imperial capital?" "Enough. Don't worry about things that don't concern you." Your words made Little Lee break into a cold sweat, not daring to speak further. Since when did his master's affairs require him to make comments and judgments? Thinking of this, Little Lee felt his heart tremble. 2 days later, in the main hall of the Great Zhou Imperial Palace, the civil and military officials stood in 2 rows. On the dragon throne, the Emperor of Great Zhou held a memorial, his body trembling uncontrollably. All the officials were bewildered. What exactly was wrong with their emperor? After a long time, the emperor suppressed his inner shock and closed the memorial. "My ministers, a great victory in Yujo. The Demon Kingdom's army of over 500,000, along with their masters and grandmasters, have all been annihilated. From now on, the border will see no more turmoil. He practically shouted these words out. The entire hall completely erupted. All the officials were beside themselves with excitement. Such a battle record was unprecedented. The current Grand Tutor Lu Tongshan excitedly stepped forward to congratulate. The fifth prince is truly a peerless genius. This battle has secured a century of prosperity for your majesty. Congratulations, your majesty. The emperor swept his gaze across the crowd with a somewhat complex expression. In this battle, the fifth prince was defeated and his whereabouts are unknown. The black and white palace army retreated. When Yujo's city was about to fall, one person stepped forward. With the power of the innate realm, he turned the tide. The one who took action was the seventh prince. As soon as the emperor finished speaking, the entire court fell dead silent. All the ministers stared wide-eyed, as if they had just heard the most unimaginable thing in the world. The seventh prince alone turned the tide with the innate realm? Everyone felt it was utterly absurd. Within the territories of the 8 kingdoms, an innate realm expert was an undisputed, peerless overlord. Whether it be a dynasty or a sect, no one would be bold enough to offend a titan of the innate realm. Seeing the crowd buzzing with discussions, the emperor's face darkened. Do you think I am joking with you? The crowd hastily cupped their fists and said they wouldn't dare. I also didn't expect that the seventh prince would encounter such a heaven-defying fortune after going to Yujo. Now, he has even become the only innate realm expert in our great Zhou dynasty. Pass down my orders. The city lord of Yujo, Shanglong, has made outstanding contributions and is hereby titled Marquis Defending the State. All other generals are to be rewarded according to decree. The seventh prince is hereby enfeoffed as the king of Han. Announce this to the world. After the court assembly ended, the entire imperial capital was in an uproar. Only the emperor sat behind his desk with a gloomy face. Standing before him were the current grand tutor, Lu Tongshan, the crown prince's guardian, Jia Jun, and the king of Wuwei, Su Qing. Your majesty, isn't granting the seventh prince the title of king of Han too excessive? Then tell me, my beloved minister, what should I do? Right now, the seventh prince carries world-shocking merit and is a titan of the innate realm. Even if I were to give him my throne, so what? Before he finished speaking, the grand tutor hurriedly advised, has your majesty considered that Yujo city now has a powerful army? What if the seventh prince harbors malicious intentions? After all, he was sent away to Yujo by your majesty for 5 years. Whether he holds any resentment in his heart, none of us know. The king of Wuwei, who had been silent for a long time by the side, also cupped his fists and spoke. The fifth prince's cultivation is astonishing. Crowning him king is not inappropriate. However, we must guard against what the grand preceptor mentioned. Imperial brother, you can send someone to Yujo to bestow the title, and then order him to return alone to the imperial capital to receive his reward. If he harbors other intentions, even though our great Zhou has no Shantian experts, other sects still have several top experts guarding the imperial capital. Su Qing's words made everyone nod in agreement. The emperor, feeling helpless, could only wave his hand. You all think too much. However, let's do as you suggest. Order the third prince to go to Yujo to issue the decree. All 3 of them thought his majesty had played a brilliant move. The third prince is an inner disciple of the pavilion master of the star-plucking pavilion. He is the most suitable person to go to Yujo. After all, the pavilion master is a top expert in the Xiantian realm. Even the fifth prince must fear him somewhat. 2 days later, the third prince arrived in Yujo. Accompanying him were 5,000 elite soldiers of the Huban army. Xiao Long led the military generals, waiting together outside the city, respectfully welcoming the third prince's arrival. Half an hour later, the third prince, along with the crowd led by Xiao Long, arrived mightily in front of your small courtyard. Seventh Highness, the Third Highness, has come under His Majesty's orders to issue an imperial decree. Xiao Long shouted with a face full of smiles for a long time, but there was no movement at all from the living room. Xiao Long also felt a hint of embarrassment and hurriedly ran into the living room. He saw you holding a book, reading, as if you hadn't heard a word he just said. Your Highness, the Third Highness is here. Xiao Long spoke softly, afraid to disturb you. If he's here, he's here. If there's a decree, let him read it in the room. I am reading and dislike being distracted. Xiao Long's mind was buzzing. This is too arrogant. Standing outside is the third prince, someone with a special status, and now he represents His Majesty to issue a decree. But look at you, sitting here reading a book. Without knowing when, the third prince had walked into the room, not minding the slight. He read the imperial decree word by word to the end. Seventh brother, receive the decree. Only then did you slowly put down the book and stand up, drawing the imperial decree into your hand with your palm, and then casually burning it to ashes. The weight of this decree is not enough. The third prince's expression suddenly darkened. Your third brother has something to say, which you might not like to hear. But for your own good, I still have to say it. Although you have made outstanding contributions, you are somewhat arrogant and look down on everyone. I will not tell our imperial father about this behavior, but you must be careful next time. Immediately, he reverted to his previous expression. Furthermore, imperial father has decreed ordering you to return to the imperial capital swiftly. All affairs in Yujo will be taken over by me. When you return this time, imperial father will surely reward you handsomely, leaving your third brother here to suffer. I'm truly envious of you. Long after he finished speaking, you still showed no intention of paying him any attention. For a moment, the atmosphere was incredibly awkward. At this moment, Xiao Long, who was standing to the side, actually spoke up. Your Highness, you've gone too far. No matter how glorious your combat power is, His Majesty is still your imperial father. No matter what he has actually done, your Highness must not harbor the slightest resentment. You turned to look at Xiao Long, somewhat surprised. Are you teaching me what to do? This lowly one wouldn't dare. But this lowly one only knows that the Third Highness has come to take over Yujo's affairs. and you should return to the imperial capital to receive your reward. At this moment, Xiaolong finally made his choice. Between the emperor and you, he still chose the former. You looked at Xiaolong, who was kneeling in front of you, speaking with self-righteousness, as a playful smile curled at the corner of your mouth. Xiaolong, do you really think that the reason I haven't killed you for the past half year is because my status as a prince of Great Zhou requires a city lord to handle trivial matters for me? Before your voice faded, a pressure as heavy as Mount Tai instantly enveloped the entire courtyard. The 5,000 elite human soldiers didn't even have time to scream before they all fell to their knees in unison. The warhorses neighed in fright but directly collapsed under that pressure. Xiaolong's face turned deathly pale, and cold sweat fell from his forehead like rain. He discovered in horror that his recently broken through Grandmaster cultivation was like a lone boat facing a vast ocean before this pressure. Seventh brother, how dare you? The third prince, Su Zhen, shouted furiously. The jade pendant at his waist burst with dazzling starlight. It was a protective artifact bestowed by the pavilion master of the star-plucking pavilion, capable of blocking a full-force strike from a Xiantian realm expert. Noisy. You raised a single finger and gently flicked it. The starlight jade pendant that could block a Xiantian strike shattered upon impact, turning into scattered crystal and dust. Su Zhen looked as if struck by lightning, flying backward, smashing fiercely into the courtyard wall, and spitting out a mouthful of blood. You are not a Xiantian, you are... The arrogance in Su Zhen's eyes completely vanished, leaving only endless terror. You completely ignored him, and instead turned to look at the 2 acres of farmland in the backyard. At this moment, from within the originally ordinary soil, a heaven-piercing pillar of purple gold light shot up into the sky. Instantly, a strange fragrance assailed the nostrils. It was the chaos Dao fruit you planted half a year ago, now fully mature. Your steps were steady as you walked toward the field under the shocking gazes of the crowd. You bent down, like a true old farmer, skillfully brushing aside the soil, and plucked that fruit shimmering with Hongmeng aura into your hand. The moment the fruit entered your mouth, the realm barrier within your body shattered instantly, like paper. The martial sage realm is achieved. At this moment, the entire sky over Yujo turned purple gold. Clouds rolled and churned, with faint phantoms of true dragons weaving through the clouds. Spiritual energy from a radius of 10,000 miles poured in madly. Not just Su Zhen and Xiaolong. Even the hundreds of thousands of citizens in Yujo City felt that trembling and submission originating from the depths of their souls. You turned around, looking at Su Zhen cowering in the corner, and Xiaolong kneeling on the ground. Return to the imperial capital? You chuckled. Of course, I will return, but not to receive some so-called reward. With a casual wave of your hand, that dusty hoe fell into your grasp. Yet at this moment, it radiated a divine might that eclipsed the stars. Xiao Lizi, the servant is here. Xiao Lizi knelt down, trembling with excitement. Lock down Yujo. Your gaze turned toward the direction of the imperial capital. Your tone is calm as if discussing tomorrow's weather. This king has farmed for so long, it's time to go to the capital and weed out those rotten grasses. 3 days later, Su Zhen was thrown into a prison cart by you like trash, and Xiaolong was left in Yujo by you. You didn't kill him, but you crippled his cultivation, making him spend the rest of his life pulling weeds in your 2 acres of land. For someone like him who pursues power, this is a fate worse than death. You sat on an ox cart, driven by Xiao Lizi, heading leisurely toward the Great Zhou capital. Along the way, several imperial enshriners, sent by the Great Zhou royal family, those so-called sect geniuses, and even 2 reclusive Xiantian experts invited by the star-plucking pavilion, were all under your single hoe, turned into fertilizer for the roadside farmlands. When your ox cart stops at the gates of the Great Zhou capital, the gates are already heavily guarded by armored soldiers. The Great Zhou Emperor, Su Wu, stands atop the city wall. Beside him stands the Great Elder of the Black and White Palace. The Emperor looks down at the son he once personally deposed, who is now unfathomably powerful. His eyes are filled with complex emotions. Are you trying to usurp the throne? Su Wu shouts angrily. You sit on the ox cart, lazily raising your eyelids. Usurp the throne, father? You think too highly of yourself. This throne of the Great Zhou, in my eyes, is worth less than a single cabbage I grew. Audacious. The Great Elder of the Black and White Palace steps forward. The aura of a peak Xiantian realm expert sweeps out. Today, I will teach you a lesson on behalf of your grandfather. Holding a black and white yin-yang emblem, it transforms into a 1,000-foot grinding stone crashing toward you. You remain seated on the ox cart, motionless. You simply raise the hoe in your hand and casually swing it through the air. This swing splits the sky. A simple vertical chop, without any flashy techniques, yet containing the supreme essence of the Great Tao. The 1,000-foot grinding stone shatters like a bubble. The Great Elder doesn't even have time to scream before turning into a mist of blood in midair. Deathly silence falls over the scene. Su Wu sways, almost falling off the city wall. You step down from the ox cart, walking up an invisible staircase in the void step by step, until you stand before Su Wu. The person who dug out my supreme bone back then wasn't the 5th prince. It was you, wasn't it? Your calm tone makes Su Wu feel like he's plunged into an ice cave. Su Wu opens his mouth, but before he can speak, you reach out and press your hand against his chest. You thought the supreme bone could secure your eternal reign, but you didn't know. That bone was merely a burden to me. You push with your palm. The piece of your supreme bone inside Su Wu's body is forcibly shattered into dust. You don't kill him. You just turn around, looking at this prosperous yet decaying capital. Little Li, pass down my decree. Little Li puffs out his chest and shouts in a high-pitched voice, understood. From this day forward, all civil and military officials of the 4th rank and above shall enter the gardens to farm. When you have learned how to farm, only then can you discuss ruling the country. That night, the capital is sleepless. Word spreads that the deposed prince has returned. He didn't sit on that cold dragon throne. Instead, right in the center of the palace, he actually plowed 2 acres of farmland. He only does 2 things every day: farming and waiting for those immortal sect experts hiding behind the 8 kingdoms to come face his hoe. No one knows exactly what level your cultivation has reached. They only know that with a martial sage farmer standing guard, the Great Joe not only secured its borders, but even the immortals in the sky dare not breathe loudly when passing overhead. The once magnificent imperial palace is now completely unrecognizable. The white marble squares were brutally torn up, revealing the fertile black soil underneath. The rare and precious exotic flowers in the gardens were uprooted, replaced by neat rows of scallions and leeks. The air is no longer filled with the suffocating scent of ambergris, but a mix of fragrant soil and the faint smell of manure. Your Majesty, this furrow is dug crooked. You sit in an armchair draped in brocade, holding a bowl of freshly cooked millet porridge, calmly giving instructions. In front of you, the once arrogant emperor, Su Wu, is now wearing patched coarse linen clothes, sweating profusely as he swings a rusty hoe. His pampered hands are already covered in bloody blisters. Every swing is accompanied by a painful tremble, but he doesn't dare to stop. Because not far beside him, the Prime Minister, who slacked off and dug a foot less, has already been buried in the dirt by little Li, with only his head exposed. He called it absorbing the essence of heaven and earth. I really can't do it anymore. Su Wu gasps for air, his eyes filled with begging and despair. Although his cultivation base is still intact, it has been sealed by you. Now, he is no different from an ordinary old peasant, and even lacks the strength of those who farm year-round. You take a sip of porridge and shake your head. Father, it's not just your body that is weak, your mind is even weaker. Back then, to secure your throne, you tacitly allowed others to dig out my supreme bone. Where did that ruthlessness go? Farming requires sincerity. Without sincerity, how can the crops grow well? Su Wu lowers his head, muddy old tears dripping into the soil. He regrets it. He truly regrets it. Just then, the sky suddenly darkens. The once clear sky is instantly covered by dark clouds. A pressure several times more terrifying than the great elders envelops the capital like the sky is falling. The ministers working in the fields fall to the ground in terror. Su Chen, traitorous son of the Great Joe, come out and face your death. A furious, thunderous roar explodes, shattering the glazed tiles of the imperial palace. Amidst the churning clouds, 3 massive spirit boats pierce through the sky. Banners flutter fiercely on the prows, embroidered with the crests of the black and white palace, star-plucking pavilion, and divine sword sect. Within the 8 kingdoms territory, the top 3 sects have actually joined forces. Standing on the central spirit boat is an old man in a Taoist robe. Yin and Yang seem to circulate as he opens and closes his eyes. This person is the master of the black and white palace, a terrifying existence rumored to be half a step beyond the martial sage realm. Beside him, the pavilion master and the sect master radiate equally monstrous auras. Their killing intent is chilling. It's over. It's all over. The buried prime minister closes his eyes in despair. With the 3 great sects arriving together, our nation will be annihilated. Although Su Wu hates you, seeing this lineup makes his face turn deathly pale. He knows this isn't just aimed at you. They are here to carve up the destiny of the Great Joe. Facing this apocalyptic formation, you merely frown and gently set down your bowl of porridge. Little Li, your servant is here. Little Li is still holding a dung bucket, looking completely unfazed. It seems our vegetable garden is about to get some high-potency fertilizer. You brush the crumbs off your hands and slowly stand up. In the sky, seeing your blatant disrespect, the palace master flies into a rage. Arrogant brat, you killed my great elder and crippled my grandson, the 5th prince. Today, I will rip out your tendons and peel off your skin, refine you into a soul lamp, and condemn you to eternal damnation. With that, he waves his hand. Behind him, thousands of sect elites summon their magical artifacts. In an instant, colorful spiritual lights blot out the sun. Countless flying swords and seals rain down like a storm toward the palace, or more accurately, toward your vegetable garden. Sigh. So ignorant. You sigh, casually pulling up a muddy scallion from the ground beside you. Since you're here, none of you are leaving. Holding the scallion, you give it a light wave at the raining artifacts and the 3 massive spirit boats. Upon touching the faint green energy released by the scallion, the sky full of magical artifacts instantly loses its luster. Sharp flying swords turn into withered twigs. Heavy seals crumble into fragile clods of dirt. What? The eyes of the 3 sect masters almost pop out of their sockets. Before they can even react, that faint green energy clings like an incurable disease, instantly sweeping across the 3 spirit boats. My cultivation, my spiritual energy. Why have my hands turned into roots? Harrowing screams echo through the clouds. Those thousands of high and mighty immortal cultivators find their bodies rapidly turning into wood. Their feet become roots driving deep into the decks of the spirit boats. Their arms twist into branches, sprouting tender green leaves. Even the 3 arrogant sect masters are now struggling desperately. What kind of demonic sorcery is this? The palace master shrieks in terror. His proud yin-yang spiritual energy, when facing this power, is like snow meeting the scorching sun, completely powerless. You slowly step into the air, standing at eye level with them, your eyes as calm as still water. Cultivation, cultivation. You cultivate until you forget your very roots. Looking at the black and white palace master whose body has half turned to deadwood, you calmly say, you absorb the world's spiritual energy, yet only know how to take without giving back. Today, I shall act on behalf of this world and harvest you pests. You raise your foot and lightly stomp on the spirit boat. Fall. Immediately, the 3 massive spirit boats lose their power, plunging down like meteorites. Without deviation, they crash perfectly into the giant pits already dug around the imperial palace. Those are the compost pits you had Little Lee prepare a few days ago. Over 1,000 cultivators, including the masters of the 3 great sects, right now Besides their heads that can still move, their bodies have been neatly planted into the pits. From today on, you will breathe in spiritual energy here and feed it back to the earth. You announce their fate from above. Only when you've nourished this land to be fertile can we discuss whether you live or die. Dead silence fills the air. The hoe in Suwu's hands drops to the ground with a clatter. Those ministers who originally harbored sinister motives now look at the mighty sect figures in the pits whom they once looked up to, who have now become literal vegetables. Every single one of them is trembling like a leaf. How is this farming? This is clearly uprooting the entire cultivation world and planting it in his backyard. You land back on the ground, pick up that green onion, and find its leaves slightly wilted. You can't help but feel a pang of heartache. Little Lee. Yes, sire. Next time these pests come, just grind them into powder in the sky and sprinkle them down. Planting them whole takes up too much space, and it makes it easy for weeds to grow. Your servant obeys. You turn around and look at the completely dumbfounded Suwu and the ministers. You smile faintly, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Why are you all just standing there? We have the fertilizer now. Hurry up and get to work. If this year's harvest is short by even a bit, none of you will get to eat. In an instant, the Great Joe Imperial Palace is bustling with activity. The Emperor swings his hoe like rain, the Prime Minister pulls weeds at flying speed, and the ministers carry manure with vigorous strides. Meanwhile, in the giant pits not far away, the masters of the three great sects are weeping tears of remorse, striving to absorb spiritual energy, just to make themselves grow a bit sturdier as trees, so they won't be despised by that terrifying farmer. As for you, you lie back down on your lounge chair, picking up the unfinished ancient tome. However, your gaze looks past the pages, towards the distant east. There, you sense the true will of this world. The heavenly Tao is awakening. It seems the farmland is getting bigger and bigger. You mutter to yourself, a gleam of excitement flashing in your eyes. Since I'm already invincible in the mortal realm, why not open my next field, up in the heavens? On the 7th day after the sect masters were planted in the compost pits, above the Great Joe capital, an event occurs that makes the souls of all living beings tremble. The purple-gold auspicious clouds are instantly torn apart. A pitch-black rift stretching for 10,000 miles spans the sky, as if heaven itself opened a giant, cold, and ruthless eye. That is the legendary Eye of Heaven. Suwu stops his hoe, looking at the sky in horror. He had read in the royal secrets of Great Joe. When a power exceeding the heavenly Tao's tolerance appears in the mortal realm, the upper realm will send down thunder to obliterate the anomaly. As the rift opens, an aura that is ancient, primordial, and absolutely exclusive pours down. Mortal ants, how dare you defy heaven and alter fate, turning cultivation fruits into filthy nourishment? You shall all be executed. A thunderous voice echoes across the territories of the 8 nations. Immediately after, 9 giant dragons made entirely of golden lightning roar out of the rift. The aura of each lightning dragon exceeds the black and white palace masters by 100 times. That is not mortal martial power. That is the embodiment of natural laws. The buildings in the imperial city crumble under this immense pressure. Those ministers who haven't yet adapted to farming directly faint dead away. Only you remain lying on your lounge chair. You even grab a freshly picked holy origin fruit, shimmering with faint starlight from the fruit plate, and take a crunchy bite. Little Lee, move the parasol a bit to the left. This heavenly lightning is a bit blinding. You mumble your orders. Little Lee wipes the cold sweat from his forehead. Even though his legs are trembling, he grits his teeth and follows the command. Arrogant brat. A figure slowly emerges from the heavenly gate. The man is clad in dazzling silver armor, holding a halberd that exudes an aura of destruction. His eyes burn like the sun, with layered divine halos floating behind his head. The heavenly inspector, Kang Jie. Kang Jie looks down at the imperial palace, which now resembles a rural commune. When he sees the 3 sect masters planted in pits like tree stumps, he roars, "You actually treat them as fertilizer? Is there a problem?" You stand up, brush the fruit crumbs off your clothes, and look up at the lofty inspector. Not just them. I think those 9 loaches you brought would be pretty good for pulling plows. As for you, you look Kang Jie up and down and curl your lips in disgust. Your armor is too shiny, it attracts bugs. But if that halberd is dismantled, it could be forged into quite a few good hoes. Die! Kang Jie completely explodes in anger and abruptly swings the halberd in his hand. The 9 giant lightning dragons roar forward, transforming into a massive lightning array capable of destroying the entire Great Joe dynasty. It is about to level the imperial city to the ground. Suwu closes his eyes in despair. It's over. This is divine punishment from the upper realm. Facing the apocalyptic lightning array, you move. You don't unleash any earth-shattering divine skill. Instead, you unhurriedly draw the gray hoe from your waist that's been with you for half a year and gently swipe at the void. In an instant, an earthy yellow light, thick and heavy as the earth itself, erupts from under your feet. The land of the entire Great Joe capital seems to come alive. When the lightning array falls, it doesn't explode. Instead, like a clay ox entering the sea, it is instantly swallowed by that thick earthy yellow light. Not only that, the 9 lightning dragons let out a wail, forcefully dragged down from the clouds by this power. Their bodies rapidly shrink until they finally turn into 9 golden loaches sparking with electricity, desperately flopping around at your feet. What? Kang Jie is so shocked he nearly falls from the clouds. The heavenly Tao's thunder tribulation turned into earth attribute nourishment by you. The earth's energy carries all things. A few meager bolts of lightning are just adding some active ingredients to the soil. You smile faintly, then your eyes turn cold. My turn. You take a single step, and your figure instantly appears 1,000 feet in the sky, arriving right in front of Kang Jie. Horrified, Kang Jie tries to swing his halberd to block, but finds the surrounding space as viscous as glue. He, a celestial envoy from the upper realm, finds it difficult to even move a finger. This is a domain. No, this is a Tao. You raise your hoe and lightly tap him on the head, Second Ho, weeding. With a bang, the layered divine halos behind Kang Jie's head shatter instantly. His magnificent silver armor turns into scrap metal. Looking exactly like an uprooted weed, you grab him by the collar and throw him straight down from the sky. Another deep pit appears in the center of the Imperial Palace. You land back on the ground, carrying the halberd you've casually crushed into a twisted knot with one hand, ready to forge it into hose. Looking at the dirt-covered inspector in the pit, since he's from the upper realm, he must contain even more spiritual energy. You turn and say to little Li, plant him in the experimental field on the north side. I want to see if we can grow an elixir of immortality. Kang Jie struggled like a madman. I am an envoy of the upper realm. The heavenly Tao will not let you off. Once the heavenly gate opens wide, the immortal army will descend. You didn't listen to his nonsense at all. You just kicked him straight into the pit and casually stuffed a handful of dirt into his mouth. So noisy. Here, my words are the heavenly Tao. As Kang Jie was planted upright, the spiritual energy in the imperial city surged again. Tiny spirit stone crystals even began to condense in the air. Su Wu and the ministers were completely numb. They watched their prince bury the heavenly envoy like a little chick, and a bizarre sense of pride actually rose in their hearts. That's the land of our great Zhou. It can even plant immortals. Just then, you felt your body tremble slightly. After planting several top-tier powerhouses, your cultivation finally surpassed the peak of the martial sage realm, and touched a realm no one had ever reached before. Your divine sense penetrated that pitch-black rift, and saw the scene behind it. It was an endless mountain range, with a sea of spiritual energy and immortal birds flying about. Every inch of land exuded a tempting fragrance. That was not the mortal realm. That was the upper realm, the immortal spirit realm. When you landed in the immortal spirit realm, there was no ethereal lightness. Instead, you felt an extremely heavy stench of decay. This smell, only those who have lived long enough could smell it. It was the omen that this world's lifespan was nearly exhausted. The immortal realm wasn't as eternal as mortals thought. It was like a piece of barren land, hardened from overcultivation. You opened your eyes and found yourself standing before the ruins of the Longevity Palace. This used to be the top lineage in the immortal realm, but now it was overgrown with weeds. A decrepit old man was sitting on the broken stone steps, staring blankly at a half-dead Tao Enlightenment tea tree in front of him. He was the last successor of the Longevity Palace, Patriarch Longevity. His lifespan had reached its end. With every breath, his body exuded the aura of death. Another one coming to die. The Patriarch didn't even look up, his voice hoarse. The immortal realm has no spiritual energy left. This soil can't grow longevity, nor can it sprout life. Young man, before you die of old age, find a place to bury yourself. You looked at the nearly dead tea tree, then at the cracked immortal soil, and suddenly smiled. This land isn't dead. It's just tired. You said nothing more, and unslung the hoe from your shoulder. The Patriarch sneered. You just ascended here, and instead of rushing to find a method for seclusion, you actually play with a hoe in front of me? Do you know I've cultivated longevity arts for 10,000 years? Yet I still can't resist the depletion of this heaven and earth. You didn't answer. You simply stood beside the withered tea tree, bent down, and gently dug the first scoop of soil. One strike to restore the origin. As the hoe went down, there were no earth-shattering shockwaves, but in the Patriarch's cloudy eyes, he saw a scene that made his soul tremble. As the hoe sank in, the cracked immortal soil actually seeped out a trace of golden, primal, life-filled essence of the earthly Tao. For the past half-year farming in the mortal realm, what you accumulated in your body wasn't spiritual power, but the source of life. Cultivators demand from heaven, while your farming is an offering to the earth. You took the fertility of those 2 acres from the mortal realm, and through this single strike of the hoe, fed it back to this dried-up immortal realm. This is the pulse of the earth. Patriarch Longevity stood up abruptly, his body trembling with excitement. You continued to loosen the soil around the roots. Your movements were unhurried, filled with some kind of ancient rhythm. Half an hour later, the Tao Enlightenment tea tree, withered for 3,000 years, suddenly shook violently. From the originally grayish-white bark, a tender green sprout forcefully squeezed out. At that moment, a refreshing fragrance swept across 10,000 miles. Dead wood finding spring. Bathed in that refreshing fragrance, Patriarch Longevity's sunken eye sockets filled out again. His bark-like skin actually began to glow with vitality. His lifespan had ended, and today was supposed to be his day of death. But now, he felt his exhausted wheel of life forcefully reverse, generating 3,000 years of lifespan out of thin air. Then, with a thud, this old monster who had roamed the immortal realm for 10,000 years actually knelt down before you. There was no trace of arrogance in his eyes, only extremely humble gratitude and awe. Sinner of the Longevity Palace pays respects to the true body of the Azure Emperor. He mistook you for the legendary Azure Emperor who controls the vitality of all heavens. You wiped your sweat, helped him up, and said calmly, I'm no Azure Emperor. I just felt that if this tree died, and there was no tea to drink, it would be quite a pity. You pointed at the desolate ruins and continued, Old man, if you don't mind, I'd like to borrow 2 acres of land here to grow some rations. As long as the great Grandmaster is willing, not to mention 2 acres, the entire million-mile territory of the Longevity Palace is soil in your palm. Patriarch Longevity was so excited he was incoherent. Soon, the news of the Longevity Palace reviving deadwood spread throughout the immortal realm. The major immortal sects that intended to divide the Longevity Palace's foundation descended one after another. Leading them was the immortal lord of the Great Burning Heaven sect. His aura was violent, shouting aggressively before even landing. Old man Longevity, I heard you obtained a supreme longevity treasure. Hand it over and this lord will guarantee you another 100 years of life. However, when this immortal lord landed on the square of the Longevity Palace, he was stunned. He saw Patriarch Longevity, the once imperious quasi-emperor, now carrying a basket of manure, sweating profusely, and happily weeding in the fields. And in the very center of the main hall, you were sitting on a small folding stool, looking at a newly grown grain of longevity wheat in your hand. The immortal lord was furious. Insolent. Has the longevity palace actually fallen so low as to associate with farmers? Burn this field to the ground for me. He struck out with his palm, and sky-filling immortal fire turned into a fire dragon rushing toward the wheat field. You frowned slightly. The soil was just loosened. Too much heat will damage the roots. You casually scooped a ladle of water from the bucket beside you and splashed it out. Splash. That immortal fire capable of burning mountains and boiling seas, the moment it touched this ladle of water, actually made a sizzling sound and was instantly extinguished, even turning into a gentle mist. That immortal lord looked as if he had taken a heavy blow. He flew backwards, his eyes full of horror. This isn't water. This is liquefied life essence. You stood up, looked at the terrified immortal lord, and didn't make a move to kill him. You just said indifferently, "Cultivators. Oh, cultivators. You desperately seek eternal life, but are always digging your own graves. The aura of death brought by slaughter will only make this world die faster. Without the land, from whom are you seeking longevity?" You opened your palm. Inside was a golden grain of wheat. Do you want longevity? That immortal lord was stunned and subconsciously nodded. You flicked your finger, and the wheat fell into his mouth. In an instant, the immortal lord's violent aura disappeared, replaced by a warm, peaceful, and profound vitality. The hidden injuries in his body left from forced breakthroughs all healed at this moment. What was more terrifying was he felt that although his cultivation realm hadn't moved, the strength of his physical body had increased several times over. The fear of experiencing the 5 decays of heaven and man at any moment vanished. This single grain of wheat is worth my 10,000 years of cultivating longevity arts. The immortal lord's face was full of shock. He suddenly realized that the person before him was no farmer. This was a god who had cultivated the very essence of life. Go back. You picked up the hoe and walked back into the field. Fight less in the future and save up more good soil. If you are willing, bring some purple cloud living soil to trade next time, and I'll give you 2 pounds of wheat seeds. This subordinate accepts the order. The immortal lord knelt on one knee, performing the most solemn kneeling salute. He wasn't subdued by force. He was completely won over by this miracle of granting life. From this day on, the atmosphere of the immortal realm completely changed. Those formerly arrogant immortal emperors and demon venerables no longer went around fighting over immortal pills and magical treasures. Instead, they searched the whole world for various rare soils. The Hall of Longevity became the true holy land of the immortal realm. Countless old monsters who had lived for tens of thousands of years just to take a breath by the field ridges of the Hall of Longevity wouldn't hesitate to swallow their pride and beg Patriarch Longevity for a spot to pull weeds. Yet, you still lived in that simple little courtyard. You no longer cared about Su Wu in the mortal realm, or the spine dragon of Yujo, and had even forgotten the hatred regarding the supreme bone. Because you realized that, when your hoe pierced into this land, when you watched those seeds break through the soil, the feeling of watching the universe's vitality flow at your fingertips was true invincibility. What is a supreme bone? It's just a piece of bone. You are the tiller of this heaven and earth. You are longevity itself. The rain in the immortal realm had always been sweet nectar condensed from spiritual energy, but on this day, a black rain fell from the sky above the Hall of Longevity. When the raindrops fell on the immortal stones that hadn't decayed in 10,000 years, they shockingly made a sizzling, corrosive sound. When they fell on the immortal lords working in the fields, their protective immortal light dimmed instantly, and their previously rosy faces aged rapidly. It was as if a single drop of rain had taken away a century of lifespan. This was the physical manifestation of the 5 decays of heaven and man. It was the reign of silent extinction. Patriarch Longevity, who was weeding the wheat field, dropped his hoe in horror, his face deathly pale. This was the nightmare of all cultivators in the immortal realm, signifying that the lifespan of this world had truly reached its end. The heavenly Tao had begun to harvest all living beings, forcibly taking back all the spiritual energy it had lent out. It's over. The immortal realm is collapsing. The immortal lord of the great Brahma sect looked at the age spots appearing on his arm and roared in despair. Amidst the chilling gloom of the sky full of black rain, only you still sat beneath the now lush enlightenment tea tree, with a set of coarse clay tea utensils placed before you. You looked up at the despair-inducing black clouds, and then looked at the raindrops falling into the fields, causing the leaves of the longevity wheat to turn yellow, and frowned slightly. This rain is too acidic. The soil can't handle it. You didn't conjure any shields, letting the black rain fall on your clothes. Strangely enough, that rain of death that could corrode an immortal lord's lifespan acted like it hit a sponge when it landed on you, vanishing instantly. Since it's acidic, it needs to be neutralized. You picked up a chipped clay pot from the table and casually collected a pot full of the black rain. Then, you did something no one could understand. You poured this pot of rain, filled with the aura of death, into the boiling teapot. Gurgle, gurgle. What was boiling in the pot were the enlightenment tea leaves you had just picked. Right at this moment, the void tore open, and a deathly silent figure descended, treading on the black rain. He was entirely shrouded in a gray robe. With every step he took, the void beneath his feet collapsed piece by piece. The Tao Lord of Extinction, the oldest taboo existence in the immortal realm. He cultivated the Tao of devouring lifespans, and was the mastermind behind this 5 decays of heaven and man. The Hall of Longevity actually still holds such dense vitality. Young man, your physical body is brimming with primal life force. Sacrifice yourself to me, and I will let you be the gravekeeper of this new world. His oppressive aura swept across the entire area. Patriarch Longevity and the great Brahma Immortal Lord were pressed flat into the muddy water, unable to even lift their heads. But you acted as if you didn't hear him, staring intently at the teapot. The heat is just right. You lifted the teapot and poured a cup of pitch black tea, which emitted a strangely refreshing fragrance. A visitor from afar is a guest. Have a cup of tea to warm your body. You raise the teacup, gesturing to the demon lord who was capable of destroying the immortal realm. The Tao Lord of Extinction sneered, playing parlor tricks. I am the source of extinction, immune to all poisons. You think a cup of tea can... He didn't finish his sentence because he saw you gently push the teacup. The cup of tea didn't fly out. Instead, it transformed directly into a cloud of mist, instantly enveloping the Tao Lord of Extinction. What is this? The Tao Lord of Extinction discovered in terror that what the mist contained wasn't spiritual energy, nor was it poison. It was a cycle that made him feel incredibly unfamiliar. That black rain was originally the ultimate death aura of the world, but after being brewed with your enlightenment tea leaves in the hands of a farmer, extreme death gave birth to life. It had actually transformed into the purest rejuvenation water. He let out a shrill, miserable scream. The death aura on his body began to melt away madly. His previously bone-dry body actually began to turn tender. His wrinkles vanished. His white hair turned black. His aged voice became childish. But for him, this was the cruelest torture. Because he cultivated the Tao of death, vitality was a deadly poison to him. No. Stop. I do not want longevity. I want extinction. Sitting under the tea tree, you slowly poured yourself a cup as well, and took a light sip. This is known as fallen petals are not heartless things. They turn into spring mud to nurture the flowers. You said indifferently, you've collected so much death aura, if it isn't used for composting, that would be such a waste. Since you don't want to die, then live your life all over again. Under the dumbfounded gazes of the crowd, that Tao Lord of Extinction who suppressed eternity, under the shroud of this tea mist, was forcefully regressed from a 10,000-year-old demon growing backwards into a chubby, fair-skinned 3-year-old toddler wearing a red belly band. All the death aura in his body was purified, turning him into a pure child with an innate Tao body. He sat on the ground, looking blankly at his own little hands, and burst out crying. Wah! The black rain stopped. The thick, heavy, dark clouds in the sky were blown away by the steam rising from the teapot, revealing the long unseen, clear, starry sky. The black rain that had fallen into the earth was now entirely transformed into black gold fertilizer. The withered yellow longevity wheat instantly grew 3 feet taller. Golden waves of wheat rolled in the wind, exuding an enticing aroma. Patriarch Longevity climbed up trembling, looking at the extinction toddler crying loudly on the ground, and then looking at the calm and breezy you. He only felt his throat go dry. A pot of tea boiled away the 5 decays of heaven and man. A cup of water drank an eternal demon lord into a baby. How is this cultivating immortality? This is playing with karma. Gee, Great Grandmaster Patriarch Longevity knelt on the ground, his voice trembling. How should we handle this child? You put down your teacup and pointed at the still crying extinction toddler. This child has good innate potential. He just walked a narrow path before. It just so happens my field needs a melon watcher. You casually tossed over a small straw hat, which landed perfectly on the extinction toddler's head. From now on, let's call him Atu. Tell him whenever he finishes tilling this field watered by the black rain, that's when he's allowed to eat. From that day on, the Hall of Longevity in the immortal realm gained a new spectacle. A little toddler wearing a red belly band and a straw hat, carrying a hoe taller than himself every day, huffing and puffing as he turned the soil in the fields. Who could have imagined that this was the Tao Lord of Extinction who once terrified the entire immortal realm? And you still sat beneath that enlightenment tea tree. You no longer searched for any path to ascension, because you realized that, when this heaven and earth regained its vitality beneath your hoe, the path beneath your feet was the great Tao of longevity. A century later, the immortal realm had completely changed its appearance. The scenes where people once fought tooth and nail over a single spirit herb could no longer be seen, because everyone discovered that as long as they begged the Hall of Longevity for a bag of Suclant's fertilizer, they could grow premium spirit herbs in their own back mountains. The sect masters of the major immortal sects no longer greeted each other by asking how much their cultivation had improved, but rather, have you ground up those 2 acres of spirit bones at your place? Don't mention it. The heavenly Tao has been a bit dry lately. I'm just preparing to go beg the great Grandmaster to drop some sweet rain. On this day, as you were pruning the branches and leaves of the Enlightenment tea tree, Su Wu from the mortal realm, who was now the supreme emperor of the great Zhou dynasty, climbed up through the heavenly ladder you left behind. He had aged a lot, but his spirit remained hale and hearty. Ah, cheer! Su Wu looked at the garden full of immortal grass and divine herbs, filled with deep emotion. The great Zhou in the mortal realm now enjoys favorable weather, and the people live and work in peace. I truly never imagined that what ultimately saved the world wasn't my political maneuvering, nor your supreme bone, but rather, this hoe. You smiled and handed him a cup of fresh tea. Father, the supreme bone only allows one to look down on all living beings, but a hoe allows one to nurture them.